In this chapter, we're discussing chapter 4 from our digital marketing analytics text. So chapter 4 is focused on brand analysis. As many of our books talk about in business and business management, marketing, what you can't manage what you don't measure. And this is a quote by Peter Drucker, who writes a lot of books about management. So we've talked a lot about measurement and why we would measure. And most of it is because we need to understand what's happening with our company, with our brand, in order to make goals, make changes to our marketing plan and our marketing strategy. So why should we do digital brand analysis? One is just we should do a regular check-in on what our brand position is, because if we don't understand where we currently are, we can't make goals for the future. It helps us identify how our brand is performing. It allows us to compare with our competitors. We can evaluate how well different advertising techniques are doing, different campaigns that we've put out. We can find strengths and weaknesses in our marketing efforts, which marketing tools and platforms are performing better than others. There are various different things that we look at when we're doing a brand analysis. One is brand share. So this is similar to the concept of marketing share. How much of the market do we have compared to our competitors? Brand audience. So who is our audience and where is that audience at and how are they engaging with our brand? And then brand and consumer alignment. Are we aligned with our target audience, or are there places where we're not aligned with our audience, and how can we help to get better aligned with our audience? So first, we're going to talk through some components of brand share. The first is share of voice. How much of the total conversation about a category does our brand occupy? How we measure share of voice is total discussions about our brand divided by the total discussions in any category. This can be our industry, our brand versus competitors. We would use a social listening tool to measure this. So we discussed social listening tools in chapter 3 when we were talking about the different technologies we would put into a marketing stack. So a social listening tool gathers up what people are saying about our brand on different social media platforms and helps us to measure those. This is an example of a result from Google Trends on share of voice. So this is a share of voice for quick serve restaurants. And we can see the largest share of voice at this time. So remember, this is just a snapshot, usually of a 30-day period or whatever period we put into Google Trends as part of our measure. So McDonald's has the highest share of voice at the time that this graphic was created. Taco Bell and Pizza Hut would be second and third in share of voice, and then all of the others to follow. So this is how many people are sharing our content across social media, how many are posting about on social media about our brand, and who's engaging with our brand on social platforms. This is another example of share of voice. So we can see that Netflix, at the time that this graphic was created, had the largest share of the market for streaming services, for the top few streaming services. Compared to Hulu, Amazon, HBO, and Disney Plus, Netflix was commanding the share of voice at this time. So that means on social media platforms, customers were talking more about Netflix than these other tools. Brand share also covers share of search. So we've talked about this a little bit in the last couple of weeks, especially last week when we talked about search engine optimization and how we bring ourselves up higher in an online search by the use of keyword tactics and keyword tools. So share of search is the number of organic searches we have received as a proportion to the total number of searches made for every brand in our industry. It helps us to indicate market share. We also looked at some share of search graphics last week in when we were looking at Super Bowl ads and the reaction of Super Bowl ads to increase the amount of organic searches that happen on the internet. So share of search is the total number of searches about your brand divided by the total number of searches in your category. We would use Google Trends to measure our share of search. So Google Trends is, again, one of those marketing technology tools that we would put in our technology stack and use for measurement. We used Google Trends in our class activity last week. This is an example of a share of search result for mobile phones. So this is a total share of search between January 1st, 2007 and June 7th, 2021, as we can see up here at the top of the graph. This is worldwide, how many people have searched using these brand names. And we can see that Apple plus iPhone dominates the worldwide share of search for organic searches. This is another example of share of search. So this is actually search engine market share by device type. So what search engines are people most likely to use on various devices? So a desktop computer, we see that Google is the top, followed by Bing, Baidu, Yahoo, and then other. On mobile tablets, Google is the highest percentage, and then on consoles, Google has almost the entire share of search. So that's the search engine that we're using. We can see that Google dominates the market for the search engine that people use. The last component of brand share is our share of audience. Who is our audience? How many people are we reaching with our marketing efforts? So to measure share of audience, we take the total audience for our brand and divide that by our total audience per competitor within any category. So first we would have to inventory total audience across all of our properties, so social media platforms, websites, apps, add all of those together, and then calculate those same statistics for each competitor. One of the issues with measuring this share of audience is that our audiences can overlap across social media. So if someone follows us on Facebook, it's likely they're also following us on Twitter and Instagram. Another way you can measure share of audience is through a social media technology tool or social media management tool, such as Hootsuite or Sprout Social, where you can bring in the management of all of your social media platforms into one technology solution. This is an example of share of audience, again, where Netflix has more than 50% of the total share of audience between all of the streaming services. And again, where people can overlap on different services. So there might be some combination of people who have multiple services. Now that we've looked at brand share, we're going to talk about some metrics for brand audience. So one is total audience reach. This identifies our total audience reach across all channels. We would use our website analytics. So if we're using a web analytics tool like Adobe or Google Analytics to measure how our website is performing. Our social media analytics, whether we go to each social media tool such as Facebook Insights or Instagram Insights, or if we have a social media management system such as Hootsuite or Sprout Social. And our email analytics. We would measure our email analytics if we had an email tool, which we're going to talk about in another chapter. Or we can also have an email technology management, such as the customer resource management system that maintains our email analytics. So this helps us to track both organic and paid reach, because all of them will tell us which of those metrics were organic and which ones were paid reach, such as pay-per-click, click-through on ads, and helps us to see the actual reach of all of our marketing activities. What this total audience reach helps is to see which of our marketing content draws the most engagement from our audience and draws more people into our audience. If you remember when we were looking up different brands on social media, and we saw that some of them had tens of thousands in engagement on different posts, and then 300 to 500 on other posts. And so what drives the extra engagement on those really high engagement posts versus their normal reach and engagement? Our total audience attention. So there's a lot of demand for audience attention. And we have a lot of demands against our attention. We have a lot of choices on how we spend our attention. And audience attention spans have shortened. So common metrics are total time spent and total minutes spent. As we talked about in another chapter, we talked about the different measurements within various social media platforms, where we look at total views on videos as anyone who spent more than 3 seconds looking at an online video. And then we have total completion of videos. So this total audience attention would help us to see more of those video completions. So how many people spend time on our website or spend time interacting with our content versus just viewing our content and then scrolling past. And then total audience engagement. So this is a social media tool where we measure engagement. Remember, the main difference between reach and engagement is reach also includes impressions. So how many people just saw what we created versus how many people liked it, shared it, commented on it, which is the engagement measures. What engagement matters the most to us, and we should focus on measuring that. Are we trying to collect likes? Are we looking to increase followers? Do we want people to share our content for that organic reach that we're not paying for? Which one is most important to us? Or are we going to measure them all and hope to increase them all? And then brand and consumer alignment. So helping us align with what customers want, need, expect, and believe about our brand. So the book talks about how a lot of the times that brands are not aligned with what their target customers actually want, need, and expect from them. And it's important for us to look at our posts and our engagement and our content and how people react to them to measure that alignment. One of the techniques we use for measuring consumer alignment is this brand window framework from the textbook. This is a tool that measures 3 different views of customer conversations. We would collect this information using a social listening tool, and we can look at 1, customer perception. What are customers saying about our brand or telling other people about our brand? Our brand realities. which of our content is being shared by our consumers. And then the brand aspirations. So which of our content isn't being discussed or shared by consumers, and why or why not? So we would look at which ones are they sharing versus which ones aren't they sharing or talking about, and try to determine why they're not sharing those things. Okay? And that is the end of chapter 4 from the Digital Analytics book.